Ernest Roberts, Australian politician. Labour politician and soldier, 1868 to 1913. Ernest Alfred Roberts, February 21, 1868 to December 2, 1913, was a Labour member of the South Australian House of Assembly from 1896 to 1902 and 1905 to 1908 and then the Australian House of Representatives from 1908 to 1913. Roberts also served as an officer in South Africa during the Second Boer War, with South Australian Colonial Forces in 1900 and Commonwealth Forces in 1902. From 1904 to 1908 he was the editor of the Herald, a left-wing newspaper published by the United Labour Party, ULP. Ernest Roberts. Black and white portrait of Roberts in a suit. Roberts in 1908. Member of the Australian House of Representatives for Adelaide. In office. June 13, 1908 to December 2, 1913. Preceded by Charles Kingston. Succeeded by George Edwin Yates. Member of the South Australian House of Assembly for Adelaide. In office. May 27, 1905 to May 15, 1908. Preceded by Bill Denny. Succeeded by Edward Alfred Anstey. Member of the South Australian House of Assembly for Gladstone. In office. April 25, 1896 to May 3, 1902. Preceded by James Henderson Howe. Succeeded by Seat abolished. Personal details. Born February 21, 1868. London, England. Died December 2, 1913, aged 45. Melbourne, Australia. Nationality British Australian. Political party Labour Party. Spouse Bridget Marie Ney Collins. Occupation wharf labourer, journalist, politician. Military service. Allegiance British/Australian. Service/branch. 4th Imperial Bushmen's Contingent. 2nd Battalion, Australian Commonwealth Horse. Years of service. 1900 to 1902. Rank. Captain. Party candidate and won the seat, then retained it in the 1910 federal election. Roberts represented the Minister for Defense, Senator George Pearce, in the House of Representatives, and also while Pearce was overseas in 1911, and was appointed as an honorary minister later that year. He retained his seat at the 1913 federal election, but soon after a fierce parliamentary debate on December 2, 1913 he collapsed and died from a heart condition. He received a state funeral attended by 6,000 people. The loss of Roberts, considered a highly capable and up-and-coming member of the ULP, was felt intensely by his political comrades, along with his fire, energy and enthusiasm. In 1917 a monument was erected over his grave at West Terrace Cemetery in Adelaide, which the Advertiser newspaper described as emblematic of the untimely end to his brilliant career. Uitlander migrant workers in the Boer republics, to broaden his experience and strengthen himself for political battles to come. He was criticized at the event for leaving his electoral district and for breaking away from the Labour Party during the fall of the Kingston ministry. He vigorously defended himself, and his explanation was met with loud cheers from the crowd. He also stated that colonial troops were now needed to maintain the solidarity of the British Empire. The contingent, which consisted of 2 mounted squadrons commanded by Lieutenant Colonel James Rowell, embarked on the transport Manhattan at Port Adelaide on May 1, 1900. After picking up a squadron of Western Australian troops at Fremantle, the ship stopped at Beira in Portuguese Mozambique, and Durban in the colony of Natal, before disembarking the troops at Port Elizabeth in the Cape Colony on June 19. Upon arrival, the South Australian and Western Australian contingents were joined with a Tasmanian squadron to form an Australian mounted regiment of about 400 troops, under Rowell's command. To the border between British Bechuanaland and the Transvaal. Significant numbers of Boer troops were observed ahead of the advancing battalion, but no fighting took place. On the night of May 10 the Boers unsuccessfully attempted to break through the line of advancing troops. On the following day, a Boer commando approached under a white flag, and Roberts rode out, bringing in 191 prisoners and over 200 horses. Another 52 Boers surrendered to other elements of the battalion. The drive was called to a halt at 1500 hours on May 11, when it reached the Kimberley to Mafeking railway line, and the Commander-in-Chief of British Forces, Lord Kitchener, telegraphed his appreciation to Hamilton for the efforts of his troops. Across the 5 days of the drive, only 1 Boer was killed, and no Australians were even wounded. The battalion returned to Klerksdorp on May 21, and after peace was concluded on May 31, remained there until June 20. Hamilton congratulated the Australians for playing a distinguished part in the closing act of the war. The battalion then rode to Elandsfontein, arrived there on June 25, handed over their weapons and equipment, and entrained for Newcastle on June 29, arriving there the following day. On July 5, the battalion entrained for Durban, and embarked on the transport Norfolk the next day. The ship departed on July 8, arrived at Albany, Western Australia, on July 25 and Adelaide 5 days later. The troops were paid off and discharged on the day of their return. Roberts did not receive any additional medal or clasps for his service with the 2nd Battalion, Australian Commonwealth Horse. While he was away in South Africa, Roberts' term in the Assembly expired, and he did not contest a seat at the 1902 South Australian state election on May 3, the seat of Gladstone having been abolished in a redistribution. From 1904 to 1908 Roberts edited the Herald.